after 5 years together, she claimed I was too dependent and needed to grow alone. A week later, I saw her engagement photos with another man. The conversation that ended everything happened on a Tuesday evening in our Chicago condo, over takeout from the Thai place we'd been ordering from since our second month together. I thought we were planning our weekend trip to Wisconsin when Olivia dropped the bomb that would change everything. I'm a financial advisor, 31 years old, and I've built my life around stability and long-term planning. My relationship with Olivia felt like the best investment I'd ever made. We'd met through mutual friends at a rooftop party in River North, and what started as casual conversation about her marketing career turned into 5 years of what I genuinely believed was building toward marriage. We'd moved in together after 18 months, split everything 50-50, talked about buying a house in Lincoln Park, even started a joint savings account for our future wedding. I'd been mentally preparing to propose within the next 6 months, waiting for the right moment to make it official. "Brandon, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, setting down her pad thai without taking a bite. Her voice had this careful, rehearsed quality that immediately put me on edge. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about where we're heading, and I think I need some space to figure out who I am outside of this relationship." I stopped mid-chew, watching her face for any sign this was some kind of joke. "What do you mean, space?" I asked, though I already knew this wasn't going to be a conversation about taking separate vacations. "I mean, I think I've become too dependent on us, on you, on this life we've built together. I need to grow alone for a while, rediscover my authentic self without being half of a couple." The words sounded like she'd been practicing them in the mirror, or worse, discussing them with someone else. "Olivia, we've been together 5 years. If you're having doubts about us, we can work through them together. That's what couples do." She shook her head, her blonde hair falling across her face in a way that used to make me want to reach out and tuck it behind her ear. "This isn't about doubts, Brandon. It's about personal growth. I need to remember who I am when I'm not Brandon's girlfriend." The way she said my name, like it was a burden she'd been carrying, hit harder than any direct insult could have. "Is there someone else?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to hear the answer. "God? Brandon, no. This isn't about another person. This is about me needing to be alone, to grow as an individual." Her response came too quickly, too defensively, the kind of over-explanation that usually signals deception. "I care about you so much, which is exactly why I need to do this. I don't want to wake up in 10 years wondering who I might have become if I hadn't been in a relationship since I was 24. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand, the same gesture she'd made countless times when trying to reassure me about minor concerns, but now it felt like she was comforting me about my own execution. "So what does this mean practically?" I asked, pulling my hand away and leaning back in my chair. "I'm going to stay with my cousin Jessica for a while, just until I can find my own place. I think we should take a complete break from contact, at least for the first month or two, so I can really focus on myself without the safety net of our relationship." The clinical way she'd planned this out made it clear this wasn't a spontaneous decision born from temporary confusion. I spent the next 3 days watching her pack her belongings with methodical efficiency, like she was executing a business plan rather than dismantling 5 years of shared life. She took her clothes, her books, her coffee maker that I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago because she'd mentioned wanting to perfect her morning routine. "I still love you," she said as she loaded the last box into her Honda Civic. "I just need to love myself first, and I can't do that while I'm loving you." It was the kind of self-help book philosophy that sounded profound but felt hollow when applied to abandoning someone who'd planned their entire future around you. "Take all the time you need," I told her, though what I really meant was that I hoped she'd realize within a few weeks that our relationship was worth fighting for, that whatever personal growth she thought she needed could happen alongside our partnership rather than instead of it. The silence in our condo after she left was deafening, filled with the absence of her morning routine, her evening phone calls with her sister, her habit of watching cooking shows while folding laundry on Sunday afternoons. I kept finding myself reaching for my phone to text her funny observations or photos of things that reminded me of her, then remembering that she needed space to grow alone. Her last text to me had been brutally clear: "Please respect my need for no contact." This is the only way I can truly discover who I am without us. I respected her wishes, even though every day felt like waiting for test results that might determine whether everything I'd built my adult life around was about to disappear forever. Just 1 week into our break, my gym buddy Marcus sent me Instagram screenshots that made my blood run cold. The message arrived while I was reviewing client portfolios at my downtown office, trying to maintain some semblance of normal routine despite feeling like I was living in emotional limbo. "Dude, isn't this your ex?" Followed by 3 screenshots that destroyed everything I thought I knew about Olivia's need for independence. The first image showed her at some upscale rooftop bar, champagne glass raised in celebration, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. The second was a close-up of her left hand displaying a massive platinum engagement ring that definitely wasn't the simple solitaire I'd been planning to buy. The third screenshot was the caption that made me physically nauseous. She said yes. "Can't wait to marry my soulmate Adrian. When you know, you know. #engaged life, #soulmate found, #forever starts now." I stared at my phone screen for what felt like hours, rereading the post timestamp that showed it had been uploaded 3 days ago. 3 days after she moved out claiming she needed to discover her authentic self. 3 days after telling me she couldn't love me while learning to love herself. The math was simple and devastating. Olivia had gotten engaged exactly 72 hours after moving out of our shared home to grow alone. "Marcus, can you send me the link to this post?" I texted back, my hand somehow steady despite feeling like my entire worldview was collapsing. "Already did, brother. Sorry you had to find out this way. That's seriously messed up." I clicked through to Olivia's Instagram profile, something I'd been religiously avoiding since she left to respect her need for space, and found a carefully curated collection of engagement photos that told a story I'd been completely excluded from. The professional photographer, the designer ring, the coordinated outfits, the intimate poses with this Adrian guy who looked like he'd stepped out of a luxury watch advertisement. Everything about these photos screamed months of planning, not a spontaneous romantic gesture from someone she'd just met. I scrolled back through her recent posts, looking for clues I'd missed, and found them scattered throughout the past 4 months like breadcrumbs leading to my own devastation. Photos from restaurants I'd never been to, tagged locations at weekend spots when she'd claimed to be working late on client campaigns, carefully cropped images that I'd assumed were work events but now realized had been dates with another man. Working late again, but the view from this restaurant makes it worth it. From 2 months ago, showing a candlelit table for 2 at one of Chicago's most romantic steakhouses. Sometimes you need to treat yourself to the finer things. From 6 weeks ago, featuring champagne and dessert at a place that definitely wasn't where she told me she was having drinks with her marketing team. I started taking screenshots of everything before she could delete the evidence, my financial analyst brain automatically documenting the timeline of deception with the same methodical approach I used for client fraud investigations. The pattern was clear and calculated. Olivia had been conducting a months-long emotional affair while planning her exit strategy from our relationship, using her supposed need for independence as cover for what was actually a strategic transition from one man to another. "Sunday brunch hits different when you're with the right person," posted 3 weeks ago when she told me she was visiting her sister in Milwaukee. "Grateful for new perspectives and new adventures." From a month ago, accompanied by a photo of hiking boots that definitely weren't hers, since she'd always claimed to hate outdoor activities whenever I suggested weekend trips to Wisconsin or Michigan. The Adrian investigation required exactly 15 minutes of social media research to uncover disturbing patterns that made Olivia's betrayal seem even more calculated. He was 34, worked in commercial real estate development, drove a Tesla Model S, and appeared to specialize in dating women who were already in committed relationships based on the relationship timeline posts scattered throughout his profile over the past 2 years. Previous girlfriends had made similar announcements about discovering their true selves and needing independence, followed rapidly by engagement photos with Adrian. The guy had a system, and Olivia had fallen for it completely while destroying a 5-year relationship in the process. "Thanks for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself," she'd commented on one of his workout videos from 2 months ago, using language that suggested their connection went far deeper than casual social media interaction. By the time I finished my digital investigation, I had documented evidence of a sophisticated deception that spanned months of secret meetings, romantic getaways, and emotional manipulation disguised as personal growth philosophy. Olivia hadn't needed space to find herself. She'd needed time to transition from one relationship to another without the messy complications of honesty or direct confrontation. The woman who'd lectured me about authentic self-discovery had been living a double life with practiced efficiency, maintaining our relationship as her safety net while auditioning for her replacement. Her cousin Jessica, who'd supposedly provided emergency housing for someone needing independence, had obviously been covering for someone who needed a convenient staging area for her engagement party planning. The most devastating part wasn't even the betrayal itself, but the realization that our entire final month together had been an elaborate performance designed to make me complicit in my own abandonment. Her sudden interest in self-help books about finding your purpose, her complaints about feeling suffocated by routine, her insistence that she needed to experience life as an individual rather than half of a couple, all of it had been carefully constructed justification for something she'd already decided to do. She'd made me feel guilty for wanting to plan our future together, convinced me that my desire for commitment was somehow holding her back from becoming her best self, all while secretly planning her engagement to someone else. Rather than confronting Olivia privately and giving her another opportunity to manipulate the narrative, I decided her public announcement deserved an equally public response that would let the evidence speak for itself. I spent exactly 24 hours crafting the perfect comment, choosing each word with the same precision I used when analyzing high-stakes financial portfolios for my clients. The beauty of social media is that everything leaves a digital footprint, and Olivia had just handed me 5 years' worth of documented evidence that would expose her carefully constructed independence story as complete fiction. My comment needed to be devastating but dignified, factual but not bitter, the kind of response that would make people immediately understand what had really happened without me having to spell it out like some vengeful ex-boyfriend. Beautiful timing. 2 hearts, I wrote beneath her engagement announcement, followed immediately by a carefully curated collection of screenshots that told the real story. The first image was our lease agreement showing both our names with a renewal date just 2 months ago, when she'd enthusiastically agreed to another year in our Lincoln Park condo. The second was a photo from our 5-year anniversary dinner at Gibson's just 6 weeks earlier, where she'd posted about celebrating 5 incredible years with my person and tagged our location with heart emojis. The third screenshot was her own text message from exactly 8 days prior: "I need to grow alone and discover who I am without us. This isn't about another person, it's about finding my authentic self. Please respect my need for complete independence." The fourth was today's engagement announcement with its timestamp showing she'd accepted Adrian's proposal 72 hours after moving out to find herself. The response was immediate and explosive in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. Within 30 minutes, her engagement post had accumulated over 200 comments from people piecing together the timeline and expressing shock at the mathematical impossibility of her story. Wait, you needed independence and got engaged 3 days later? This math isn't matting, sis. Did you find your authentic self in 72 hours, or was it hiding behind another man this whole time? The screenshots I'd provided created an undeniable timeline that exposed her independence narrative as elaborate deception, and her friends, family, and professional contacts were all witnessing the collapse of her carefully constructed image in real time. Her marketing colleagues, the same people she'd told about needing space for personal growth, were now seeing evidence that she'd been planning this transition for months while lying to everyone about her motivations. Adrian's engagement post on his own profile became collateral damage as people migrated from Olivia's comments to his, armed with the same screenshots and timeline evidence that revealed their relationship had been brewing for months while she was still living with me. Bro, you're celebrating an engagement with someone who just left a 5-year relationship last week claiming she needed to be alone? This whole thing is sketchy as hell, my guy. Nothing says authentic self-discovery like immediately moving from one relationship into an engagement with another. His friend group and business associates were now questioning not just the timeline but his character for pursuing someone he knew was in a committed relationship. The professional networking aspect made everything worse for both of them, since their LinkedIn connections were following the Instagram drama and forming opinions about their integrity that would affect their careers. Olivia's damage control attempts only made the situation more damaging as she tried to rewrite history in real time while hundreds of people watched with popcorn-level entertainment. Brandon and I had been having problems for months. I should have ended things sooner, but I was trying to make it work. Sometimes you meet someone who shows you what you've been missing and gives you the courage to finally make necessary changes. Her revised narrative contradicted everything she'd posted about our relationship being perfect just weeks earlier, and people immediately called out the inconsistencies with screenshots of her own previous posts. Girl, you literally posted about celebrating 5 amazing years with him 6 weeks ago. So you were lying then or you're lying now? This is not the serve you think it is. The story began taking on a life of its own as relationship bloggers and social media influencers discovered the thread and started sharing it as a cautionary tale about modern dating deception. When someone tells you they need space to find themselves, check if they're actually just making space for someone else, became a viral caption across multiple platforms. Dating advice accounts used our situation as an example of emotional manipulation tactics, analyzing Olivia's independent speech as textbook gaslighting designed to make the victim complicit in their own abandonment. The phrase, "grow alone," became internet shorthand for, "I'm already seeing someone else but want to make my transition look noble instead of trashy." Her personal brand, which she'd been carefully cultivating as a successful marketing professional who had it all figured out, was now permanently associated with viral deception and relationship fraud. Professional consequences started emerging within days as Olivia's marketing firm began receiving calls from clients who'd seen the viral story and were questioning whether they wanted someone with such questionable personal ethics managing their brand accounts. The irony was perfect. Her professional expertise in narrative control and public image management had completely backfired when applied to her personal life, creating a case study in how manipulation tactics that work in private relationships explode spectacularly when exposed to public scrutiny. Her boss reached out to me through LinkedIn, not to take sides in the personal drama, but to understand whether her recent work behavior made more sense in light of her documented months-long deception. We noticed she'd been distracted and secretive lately, taking unusual time off and being vague about client meetings. Now we understand she was essentially running a second life during work hours. The viral nature of the story meant that Olivia couldn't escape the consequences by blocking me or deleting comments, since hundreds of people had already screenshot everything and were sharing it across platforms faster than she could control the narrative. Her attempt to make her Instagram private came too late, since the engagement announcement and my comment thread had already been captured and shared by relationship drama accounts with millions of followers. Too late to go private now, bestie. The internet is forever. The documentation I'd provided had been thorough enough that even her family members, who'd been completely unaware of Adrian's existence, were now questioning everything they thought they knew about her character and decision-making process. Brandon's strategic exposure of Olivia's deception transformed into legitimate internet folklore within 72 hours, spawning an entire ecosystem of memes, reaction videos, and think pieces about modern relationship manipulation that reached audiences far beyond their original social circles. Major lifestyle influencers and relationship podcasters discovered the thread through viral sharing and began dissecting every aspect of the timeline as a masterclass in recognizing emotional gaslighting disguised as personal growth. The Beautiful Timing Chronicles became shorthand across dating forums and relationship subreddits for situations where someone's need for independence mysteriously coincided with their readiness for immediate commitment to someone else. TikTok creators made compilation videos analyzing Olivia's past posts for red flags, turning her 5-year documentation of our relationship into a case study of how manipulative people maintain public facades while orchestrating private betrayals. The story attracted attention from legitimate media outlets when relationship experts began using our situation as an example of sophisticated emotional manipulation tactics that were becoming increasingly common in the social media age. Psychology Today published an article titled, "When Independence Means Infidelity, Recognizing Gaslighting in Relationship Exits," that featured anonymized details from our situation while exploring how people use self-actualization language to justify deceptive behavior. Dating app executives reached out to me through LinkedIn, wanting to discuss the viral story's implications for their platforms and whether my experience might inform better detection of users who were simultaneously maintaining multiple serious relationships. The irony wasn't lost on me that Olivia's marketing expertise had accidentally created the perfect viral content, except this time she was the cautionary tale instead of the success story. Olivia's attempts at damage control became increasingly desperate and contradictory as she realized that her professional reputation was suffering permanent damage from association with viral deception. She posted a long Instagram story claiming I'd been emotionally manipulative and controlling throughout our relationship, describing herself as a victim who'd finally found the courage to leave an unhealthy situation. The problem was that her own documented social media history contradicted every claim she made, with hundreds of posts over 5 years showing a happy, supported girlfriend who frequently praised my thoughtfulness and stability. Rewriting history won't work when your history is literally documented in your own posts, hun, became one of the top comments as people shared screenshots of her glowing anniversary tributes and grateful posts about our relationship's strength during difficult times. Adrian's role in the story evolved from secondary character to primary villain as people began investigating his dating history and discovered a disturbing pattern of targeting women in committed long-term relationships. His ex-fiancée from 2 years earlier, emboldened by the viral attention, shared her own story about how Adrian had convinced her to leave a 4-year relationship by using identical language about settling for less than she deserved and needing someone who truly appreciated her ambition. He has a literal playbook, she revealed in a TikTok video that immediately went viral. Find successful women in stable relationships, convince them their partners are holding them back, promise them the lifestyle they deserve, then move on to the next target once the novelty wears off. Her revelations attracted 3 other women with similar stories, creating a disturbing portrait of someone who systematically manipulated committed women into destroying their relationships. The secondary viral story about Adrian's predatory dating patterns became its own phenomenon as women across social media began sharing experiences with men who specifically pursued them while they were in relationships, using personal growth and empowerment language to justify emotional manipulation. Dating safety advocates started using Adrian's tactics as educational examples of how sophisticated manipulation can disguise itself as romance, while relationship counselors incorporated the story into workshops about recognizing when partners' sudden dissatisfaction might be externally influenced. The phrase Adrian NG entered the vocabulary of dating forums as shorthand for targeting people in committed relationships by exploiting their insecurities about personal growth and potential. My own role in the viral story evolved from victim to inadvertent hero as people celebrated my measured response and thorough documentation of the deception. Instead of engaging in social media warfare or emotional manipulation, I'd simply presented facts and let the evidence speak for itself. Relationship experts praised my approach as an example of how to handle betrayal with dignity while still holding people accountable for their actions. "This is how you respond to gaslighting," became a common comment thread theme. No drama, no name-calling, just receipts and timestamps. The contrast between my factual presentation and Olivia's increasingly emotional damage control attempts made her look even worse while positioning me as the mature party who'd been wronged but refused to sink to petty revenge tactics. Professional opportunities began emerging from the unexpected viral fame as brands and platforms recognized my story's cultural impact and my measured handling of a highly emotional situation. Relationship-focused podcasts invited me to discuss the experience and share insights about recognizing manipulation tactics, while financial planning firms wanted to partner with someone who demonstrated such clear analytical thinking under extreme personal stress. A literary agent reached out about the potential for turning my experience into a book about emotional intelligence and healthy relationship communication, arguing that my systematic approach to documenting and exposing deception could help others recognize similar patterns in their own lives. Dating apps offered partnership opportunities, wanting to work with someone who'd become associated with honesty and authenticity in relationship communication. The most satisfying aspect of the viral story's evolution was watching Olivia's carefully constructed personal brand collapse under the weight of her own documented deception. Her marketing firm began distancing themselves from the negative attention as clients specifically requested that she not be assigned to their accounts, citing concerns about trusting someone with such questionable personal integrity to manage their public image. The professional networking consequences were severe and lasting, since her industry colleagues now associated her name with viral deception rather than strategic marketing success. Her LinkedIn engagement plummeted as connections realized they'd been witnessing a masterclass in manipulation rather than authentic professional achievement, making her toxic within her own industry network. Olivia's marketing firm found themselves in an impossible position as the viral story continued generating negative attention that directly impacted their client relationships and company reputation. The agency's senior partners called an emergency meeting when 3 major accounts specifically requested that Olivia be removed from their teams, citing concerns about entrusting their brand management to someone whose personal life had become synonymous with deceptive manipulation tactics. Her colleagues, who'd initially been sympathetic about her relationship transition, began distancing themselves as they realized the professional liability of being associated with someone whose strategic thinking was now publicly questioned. The irony was devastating. Her expertise in narrative control and public image management had created the perfect storm that destroyed her own career prospects while demonstrating exactly why clients couldn't trust her with their reputations. Industry networking events became impossible for Olivia to attend as her viral infamy preceded her everywhere within Chicago's marketing community. Former clients who'd worked with her began quietly reviewing their past campaigns, wondering whether her personal manipulation tactics had influenced their professional strategies in ways they hadn't previously recognized. If she could orchestrate a months-long deception in her personal life while maintaining a perfect public facade, what else might she have been hiding professionally? Became a common concern among business contacts who'd previously trusted her strategic insights. Her company's HR department received multiple inquiries from competing firms asking about her employment status and performance reviews, suggesting that industry blacklisting was becoming a real possibility rather than just social media consequences. Meanwhile, my unexpected viral fame translated into legitimate business opportunities that exceeded anything I could have planned through traditional marketing strategies. My financial advisory practice experienced a 30% increase in client inquiries within 2 months, as people specifically sought out someone who demonstrated such analytical precision and emotional stability under extreme personal stress. Potential clients frequently mentioned my measured response to betrayal as evidence of the clear-headed judgment they wanted managing their financial portfolios. If you can handle that situation with such professionalism, I trust you with my retirement planning, became a recurring theme in new client consultations. The viral story had accidentally created the most effective professional testimonial possible, real-world proof of my ability to analyze complex situations and respond strategically rather than emotionally. Podcast appearances and speaking engagements began flooding my schedule as relationship experts and financial planning conferences recognized the cultural impact of my story and wanted to discuss the intersection of emotional intelligence and professional decision-making. Emotional intelligence in financial planning, lessons from viral relationship fraud, became one of my most requested presentation topics, as audiences were fascinated by how analytical skills transfer between personal and professional crisis management. Dating app executives invited me to advisory board discussions about platform safety and user verification, arguing that my systematic approach to documenting deception could inform better detection algorithms for users maintaining multiple serious relationships simultaneously. The literary agent's book proposal attracted serious publisher interest within weeks, as editors recognized the cultural moment around recognizing emotional manipulation and the public appetite for stories about maintaining dignity during betrayal. The working title, Beautiful Timing, A Financial Analyst's Guide to Recognizing Life's Red Flags, positioned my experience as both personal memoir and practical guide for identifying sophisticated manipulation tactics disguised as personal growth. Pre-publication interest suggested the book could reach audiences far beyond relationship advice, appealing to anyone interested in analytical thinking, emotional intelligence, and professional decision-making under pressure. Olivia's family reached out through carefully worded messages that revealed the depth of their mortification about her behavior and their complete ignorance of Adrian's existence throughout our 5-year relationship. Her mother sent a heartfelt email explaining that they'd considered me family and were devastated to learn about the deception through viral social media rather than honest communication. We had no idea she was seeing anyone else or planning to leave. We kept asking when you two were getting married, and she always said you were taking things slow, but she was happy waiting for you to be ready. Her sister's message was more direct. I don't know who this person is that Olivia became, but it's not the sister we raised. We're so sorry you had to find out this way, and even sorrier that our family is now associated with this behavior. The professional networking fallout extended beyond Olivia's immediate workplace as marketing industry publications began using her story as a cautionary tale about social media crisis management and personal brand protection. Case studies emerged analyzing how her strategic communications expertise had backfired spectacularly when applied to covering up personal deception, creating teachable moments about the difference between legitimate narrative management and actual fraud. Her graduate school professors at Northwestern began receiving inquiries about whether her academic work had shown similar patterns of sophisticated manipulation, as potential employers wanted to understand whether her deceptive capabilities extended beyond romantic relationships into professional contexts. Client retention became impossible for Olivia as businesses realized that hiring someone associated with viral manipulation could damage their own brand reputation through association. Marketing agencies across Chicago quietly circulated informal warnings about the professional liability risks of employing someone whose personal judgment had been so publicly questioned. The viral story had created a permanent internet record that would appear in any background check or Google search, making her essentially unemployable in her chosen field within the Chicago market. Her options narrowed to either leaving marketing entirely or relocating to a different city where her internet infamy might not immediately precede her professional applications. Adrian's business suffered parallel consequences as commercial real estate clients began questioning whether they wanted someone with such publicly documented manipulation tactics representing their property investments. His professional network started distancing themselves as the viral story revealed his pattern of targeting committed women, creating concerns about his judgment and ethical standards in business dealings. Partnership opportunities disappeared as potential collaborators realized that association with his name could damage their own reputations through the continuing viral attention surrounding his predatory dating patterns. 3 months into the viral phenomenon, Adrian's former business associate contacted me through LinkedIn with information that transformed the story from personal betrayal into documented predatory behavior requiring public exposure. David Richardson had worked with Adrian for 2 years before severing their partnership due to what he'd initially dismissed as unprofessional romantic drama but now recognized as systematic manipulation tactics that extended into their business dealings. "I need to share something with you about Adrian's methods," his message began. "Because what happened to you and Olivia wasn't random or emotional. It was calculated, and you deserve to understand the full scope of what you're dealing with." His revelations exposed a disturbing pattern where Adrian specifically researched and targeted successful women in stable long-term relationships, using their professional networks to identify vulnerable points in their personal lives. David's documentation revealed that Adrian maintained detailed profiles of potential targets, studying their social media for months to understand their relationship dynamics, career ambitions, and insecurities before making contact through carefully orchestrated professional or social introductions. He called it market research, David explained during our coffee meeting in downtown Chicago. Adrian would identify women who seemed successful but might be feeling undervalued in their relationships, then position himself as someone who truly appreciated their potential while slowly undermining their confidence in their current partners. The systematic nature was chilling. Adrian kept spreadsheets tracking each woman's emotional vulnerabilities, relationship timeline, and optimal manipulation strategies tailored to their specific psychological profiles and life circumstances. The predatory pattern became clear as David shared examples of Adrian's previous conquests, each following an identical playbook designed to exploit successful women's natural desire for personal growth and professional recognition. He'd start by praising their career achievements in ways their long-term partners supposedly didn't, making them feel undervalued and unappreciated at home while positioning himself as someone who truly understood their worth, David continued. Then he'd introduce concepts about settling for less than they deserved, about how the right partner should elevate rather than limit their potential, always framing the manipulation as empowerment and self-actualization. The language was carefully chosen to make the targets feel like they were making brave, independent decisions rather than being systematically manipulated into abandoning their existing relationships. Olivia's case fit the pattern perfectly, with Adrian having identified her through her marketing firm's client network and spent months studying her social media presence to understand our relationship dynamics before making his strategic approach. He knew she had career ambitions that might make her feel constrained by a stable, long-term relationship, David revealed. Adrian specifically targets women who post about work achievements but might feel their partners don't fully appreciate their professional success. He becomes the person who validates their career dreams while making subtle suggestions that their current relationships are holding them back from reaching their full potential. The timing of his approach had coincided with Olivia's promotion to senior account manager, when she was feeling professionally validated but potentially questioning whether our quiet, stable life matched her elevated career status. My documentation of Olivia's deception had accidentally exposed a much larger pattern of manipulation that had affected multiple women across Chicago's professional community over the past 3 years. David provided names and contact information for other victims who'd been hesitant to speak publicly about their experiences until my viral story gave them a framework for understanding what had happened to them. Your response showed them that they weren't crazy or weak, he explained. They'd been systematically manipulated by someone who specialized in making intelligent, successful women question their own judgment and relationship choices. Seeing your evidence-based approach gave them confidence to share their own stories without shame or self-blame. The revelation transformed my understanding of Olivia's betrayal from personal failing to victimization, though it didn't excuse her choice to deceive me rather than communicate honestly about her changing feelings or concerns about our relationship. She was both a victim and a willing participant, became my perspective after learning about Adrian's systematic approach. He exploited her insecurities and ambitions, but she chose deception over honest conversation about whatever dissatisfactions she was experiencing. Understanding the manipulation doesn't justify the lying, but it explains how someone I thought I knew could become capable of such calculated betrayal. The complexity was emotionally challenging but intellectually satisfying, providing context for behavior that had seemed completely out of character. The secondary viral story about Adrian's predatory dating methods attracted attention from relationship safety advocates and dating app security teams interested in developing better detection systems for users who systematically target people in committed relationships. Love bombing disguised as empowerment became the recognized terminology for Adrian's specific manipulation tactics, with relationship counselors incorporating these patterns into educational materials about recognizing sophisticated emotional manipulation. Women's professional organizations began hosting workshops about relationship manipulation tactics that specifically target successful women by exploiting their career ambitions and personal growth aspirations. Media coverage expanded beyond relationship drama into discussions about predatory behavior in professional networking environments, as Adrian's tactics demonstrated how business connections could be weaponized for personal manipulation. Business journals published articles about maintaining professional boundaries and recognizing when networking contacts might have ulterior personal motives. LinkedIn implemented new reporting features specifically designed to address users who might be using professional platforms to research and target people for personal manipulation, citing my viral story as evidence of how sophisticated these tactics had become in the social media age. The psychological profiles Adrian maintained revealed disturbing insights into how he selected and approached his targets, with particular focus on women who posted frequently about work achievements but less frequently about relationship satisfaction. He was essentially data mining social media for relationship vulnerabilities, David explained, showing me examples of Adrian's research methods. Every like, comment, and post was analyzed for signs that someone might be receptive to suggestions that they deserved better than their current situation. It was predatory behavior disguised as romantic interest, with victims selected based on their likelihood of responding to specific manipulation techniques. 8 months after my beautiful timing, 2 hearts comment destroyed Olivia's engagement announcement, I received a message that confirmed everything I'd suspected about Adrian's predatory patterns and provided the perfect conclusion to a story that had already exceeded my wildest expectations for vindication. Brandon, I need to tell you something important about Adrian, the text began, arriving from Olivia's number despite my assumption that she'd moved on with her new life. Her engagement to Adrian had imploded spectacularly when she discovered his manipulation tactics and realized she'd destroyed a genuine 5-year relationship for someone who viewed her as nothing more than a conquest to be discarded once the novelty wore off. The irony was perfect. The same systematic research skills that had helped her excel in marketing had eventually led her to uncover Adrian's documented history of targeting committed women, making her realize she'd been manipulated by someone whose predatory behavior was far more sophisticated than her own deceptive relationship exit. I found his notebooks, her message continued, with detailed profiles of me and at least 6 other women, including timeline strategies for breaking us up with our partners. I wasn't special or chosen. I was just another target in his systematic approach to collecting successful women from stable relationships. The revelation had apparently devastated her more than losing me had, since it meant accepting that her independence awakening and personal growth journey had been entirely fabricated by someone exploiting her professional insecurities and career ambitions. She'd traded a genuine partnership with someone who actually valued her for a calculated manipulation designed to make her feel temporarily special before being discarded for the next target. My response was polite but final. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I've moved on completely. The truth was that I genuinely had moved on, having transformed my unexpected viral fame into a thriving platform focused on emotional intelligence and healthy relationship communication that attracted both professional opportunities and romantic interest from people who appreciated mature conflict resolution. My financial advisory business had grown by 40% due to clients specifically seeking someone who demonstrated such analytical precision under personal crisis, while speaking engagements and book deal negotiations provided additional income streams that exceeded my previous financial goals. The romantic interest came from Dr. Rebecca Walsh, a clinical psychologist who'd reached out initially to discuss my viral story's implications for relationship counseling but quickly discovered we shared intellectual compatibility and emotional maturity that made Olivia's betrayal feel like a blessing in disguise. Your measured response to betrayal shows remarkable emotional regulation, she'd observed during our first coffee meeting. Most people react with either explosive anger or desperate pleading, but you chose documentation and strategic disclosure. That suggests someone who processes emotions thoughtfully rather than reactively. Rebecca appreciated exactly the qualities that Olivia had taken for granted: my planning abilities, attention to detail, and preference for honest communication over dramatic manipulation. Our relationship developed naturally over months of genuine conversation about psychology, financial planning, and shared interests in analytical thinking that created the intellectual partnership I'd never experienced with Olivia. Rebecca insisted on splitting every bill from our first date, contributing equally to vacation planning, and maintaining her own career ambitions without viewing my success as competition or limitation. This is what equal partnership actually looks like, I realized, comparing the effortless balance with Rebecca to the constant financial and emotional drain that had characterized my relationship with Olivia. Someone who contributed rather than consumed, who built up rather than undermined, who chose honesty over manipulation when facing relationship challenges. My book, Beautiful Timing, A Financial Analyst's Guide to Life's Red Flags, launched to unexpected commercial success as readers connected with the intersection of analytical thinking and emotional intelligence in both professional and personal contexts. The viral story had created a built-in audience interested in practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, maintaining dignity during betrayal, and building authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial convenience. Book tour appearances and podcast interviews positioned me as an expert on relationship authenticity and emotional intelligence, creating a personal brand built on the very values that Olivia had rejected in favor of Adrian's superficial promises. Olivia's attempted reconciliation became increasingly desperate as she realized that her systematic destruction of our relationship had cost her not just a genuine partnership but also the stable, supportive foundation that had enabled her professional success. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," her final message read. "You were everything Adrian pretended to be: honest, supportive, genuinely invested in my success without needing to control or manipulate me. I threw away something real for someone who was just playing a game, and now I understand why you won't give me another chance." Her recognition came too late and changed nothing, since I'd already built a fulfilling new life with someone who valued authenticity over excitement and partnership over possession. The professional consequences for both Olivia and Adrian continued escalating months after the initial viral explosion, with Olivia eventually relocating to Denver for a junior marketing position that represented a significant career setback from her previous senior role in Chicago. Adrian's real estate business collapsed entirely as his systematic manipulation tactics became widely known throughout the Chicago professional community, forcing him to leave the city and apparently discontinue his predatory dating patterns due to widespread recognition and social media documentation. Their story became a permanent internet cautionary tale about the long-term consequences of choosing deception over honest communication in relationships. My engagement to Rebecca 18 months later represented everything I'd hoped to build with Olivia, but with someone who actually deserved the commitment and planning I brought to relationships. The proposal happened during a weekend trip to Door County, with a ring I'd chosen specifically for Rebecca's preferences rather than generic romantic expectations, at a location meaningful to our relationship rather than some generic romantic setting. "You're exactly the right person at exactly the right time," she said when I proposed, "and I love that you planned this moment around what matters to us specifically rather than what's supposed to be romantic." Her response captured everything I'd learned about authentic partnership versus performative relationship milestones. The viral story that began with Olivia's betrayal had ultimately led me to professional success, personal growth, and genuine love with someone who appreciated rather than exploited my commitment to planning and honesty in relationships. Her independence declaration had freed me to find someone who wanted interdependence rather than financial dependence, partnership rather than manipulation, and authentic connection rather than strategic positioning. The beautiful timing had indeed been perfect, just not in the way Olivia had intended when she posted her engagement announcement expecting sympathy rather than exposure.